Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Dr. Edward Padama, and this time we are going to discuss one of the basics and fundamentals of research papers, which is how to start writing your research paper. So the basic and common questions asked in this regard is where do we start and how do we start writing our research paper? So we will try to go through the requirements and the fundamentals of writing your research paper. That's why we have the following building blocks because we are going to do this in series. If we run out of time, I will be continuing it on our next video. So before we start, I would like to ask for your help in supporting my social media accounts. I have two platforms that I use in my advocacy in teaching research writing. I have my YouTube channel at Doc Ed Padama, and I also have my TikTok account with the same name. And both of these channels are a platform in spreading this advocacy of teaching and learning research writing. So both channels are dedicated in discussing research writing, tips, strategies, and the like. There are lectures, discussions, and PowerPoint presentations that can be used and has been used by teachers, college students, graduate school students, and foreign students in teaching and learning research writing. So I hope you would also be able to learn from these platforms and also help the channel, especially our YouTube channel, in growing and therefore spreading the teaching and learning process to different levels of the academy. Now, going to our main discussion, which is research writing, let's identify the building blocks for you to be able to start writing your research paper. These are requirements. So earlier, I brought up the question, where do we start? Okay? Start by reflecting on the following questions. So we have three questions represented by these blocks. The first question that you need to ask yourself is there a need to conduct your study? Is there really a problem with a certain emergence, a certain necessity that you need to do? Is there really an issue that you need to solve? So this is the first question that you need to ask yourself once you're looking for a particular topic that you will be using for your research writing. The second is a common question that has been given during defense and also by advisors to their research writers. And this question is there a research gap that you want to fill in terms of the existing knowledge or the body of knowledge that is already existing? What would your research contribute to this particular existing body of knowledge? This is what you call the research gap. A research gap is defined as research questions that has not yet been answered by any study or research. Okay, the next question in our building block is there an available theory or method that you can use in order to support your study or your proposed research paper? Are there available resources and respondents aside from the theory and method that you are planning to use? So these are part of the planning phase. Again, make sure that there is a necessity and a need to do your research. The second is to identify a research gap or an area that has not yet been answered or addressed by any other research. Third is the availability of theories, methods, respondents, and other resources. Okay, now that we have established these building blocks, these three will serve as a foundation. And this will form, these three will form what we call a research proposal. So usually, in our setup here, locally in the Philippines, when we talk about research proposal, this composes chapters 1, 2, and 3. Again, research proposal is usually composed of the first initial 3 chapters of your research paper, which is chapters 1, 2, and 3. Chapter 1, the problem and its background. Chapter 2 is the review of related literature and studies. And chapter 3 is the research methodology and design. So this will encompass all of these 3 areas that we discussed. Now, if you have already made up your mind and justified that there is really a need, there is a research gap, and there are available resources for you to be able to complete your study, then you move on to the next part of your research phase or your research process. What does this house represent? This would represent your research paper, the complete research paper with the remaining 2 parts, which is chapter 4 and chapter 5. So chapter 4, again here, as practiced in the academy in the Philippines, chapter 4 is the presentation, analysis, and interpretation of data. Then chapter 5 would be the summary of findings, conclusion, and recommendation. So basically, this is the setup of the preparation that you need in order to write your research paper. So make sure you establish the first 3 blocks before you move on to the final phases or stages of your research paper. And then, since we're talking about the fundamentals of research, taken directly from this Oxford Language Dictionary, research is a conjugation of 2 words, re and search. But basically, we would like to focus on this particular word, which is to investigate. So, as you all know, investigate is a verb that connotes action. You need to move, therefore you need to exert effort. You really need to exert effort when you start writing your paper. When you investigate, you look for something. You try to identify something. You try to validate something. You try to make sure that these are reliable. All of this will take effort. All of this will really test your ability to find sources, not only material sources, but also physical strength for you to be able to finish your research paper. So be patient, okay? Because this will really test your ability as a research writer. So, in relation to this, if research is to investigate and to produce new conclusions or new knowledge, therefore, through this investigation, new knowledge should be produced or should be added to the existing body of knowledge that we already know. So, the point here is, when doing a research, do not duplicate a research that has already been done, that has already been presented. This is what we call the recycled research, wherein the theory, the method, the idea, the issue are all the same, and what they did is just change the respondents and the locale of the research paper. So, for you to be able to really produce a very fruitful research paper, first thing that you need to do is try to make sure that this is novel, this is new, and it is timely, relevant, and you have the passion and interest on this particular topic that you are investigating, wherein you're going to create your research paper around it. Okay, do not choose a research paper that you are not interested in. You will have a very hard time creating a research paper wherein another person just gave you a title for you to create a research around that title. You will have to choose the title. But because by choosing a title, this makes sure and this ensures that you are interested in the title that you chose. Okay? So, moving on, again, as I said earlier, research is a conjugation of two words. Re is a prefix meaning repeat. Replicable in terms of when you double check and recompute the results that were presented in your research, the answer should be the same. Okay? When the method that you use and the theory that you use is replicated or used in another research, the answer or the output or the outcome should be the same. That is what we mean by replicable, not duplicable, or not to duplicate a research that has already been done. Okay? So, research is replicable when an independent group of researchers can copy the same process and arrive at the same results as the original study, hence establishing its validity. Okay, and then the word research refers to the action look for, the pursuit of knowledge and learning. Okay, now that we have established the meaning of research, uh, in general or by general definition, research is a scholarly, meaning academic study devoted to the pursuit of knowledge and learning. There are formal and informal forms of searching and conducting research. So when you wake up in the morning and you hold your cell phone and try to Google something because something is bothering you, that is already a form of researching. Okay? But that is not an academic form of research. Okay? So, continuing the definition, careful and detailed investigation into a specific problem, concern, or issue using scientific method to arrive at a solution. So, all of these words that are in red are the operational terms that really holds value in conducting a research. It is scholarly, it involves investigation. The problem should be specific because this is one of the most common errors in formulating a research title, which is the specificity, if there is such a word, of the title that you are proposing. And then the last one is a solution or the outcomes or the output of your research. Okay. Now, again, in order to orient students or writers that has are not yet familiar and this is their first time to write the research papers, I always tell them to make sure that you're familiar with the difference between quantitative and qualitative. So we are going to discuss some of the characteristics of quantitative and qualitative and dwell a little bit on these characteristics for you to be able to choose what type of research would you like to dive into. Would it be quantitative, qualitative, or mixed method? Okay, so let's get into that discussion. So these are some of the characteristics of quantitative and qualitative. So quantitative focuses on testing theories and hypotheses. That's why when you create a quantitative research, one of the requirements, the strict requirements is that you establish a main theory that you want to use that can support the idea and the goal of the research that you are trying to achieve in your paper. Okay? So, hypotheses are also formed in a quantitative research, which is the opposite of qualitative research, because in qualitative, you do not have or you do not form hypotheses. Okay, so under qualitative, this focuses on exploring ideas and experiences. So usually you're going to see research titles under qualitative that starts with lived experiences of students under the new normal of learning. So that's a phenomenological research that falls under qualitative research. Okay? And then another characteristic of quantitative and qualitative is that quantitative is analyzed through the use of statistical analysis. So these are the examples of the statistical formula that is usually used for quantitative research. And then on the other side, qualitative is analyzed by summarizing, categorizing, and interpreting the data. So some of these methods is the thematic analysis. Okay? And then another difference between the two, under quantitative, this is mainly expressed in numbers, tables, and graphs because it uses statistical analysis and numerical data. Under qualitative, this is mainly expressed in words, narratives, through narrations because these are descriptions of what you have observed, what you have heard, what you have gathered through interview or focus group discussion. And then the next one, under quantitative, this requires a large number of respondents, usually groups, one group, single group, two groups, or more than two groups. Okay? On the other hand, under qualitative, does not require as large as the number required under quantitative. So does not require a large number of respondents, usually administrators, officials, and etc. And then the next one, under quantitative, it uses close-ended questions for gathering data using a particular instrument, specifically a questionnaire. It uses close-ended questions answerable by yes or no, true or false, multiple choice, and rating scale like Likert scale. And then under qualitative, this one uses an open-ended question, meaning questions that are usually requires an explanation. So it usually asks you to explain, discuss, and start a question with why, how, and so on and so forth. Okay, now moving on to the next. So we have quantitative. As defined, quantitative is used to quantify opinions, behaviors, and other definable variables and generalize results from a larger sample population. So quantifiable or quantitative means quantifiable, measurable, uses numerical data for statistical analysis. So this is just a summary or outline of the table that was presented to you earlier. So data gathering process or data instrument used to gather data can be questionnaire, checklist, and survey. And then the design under quantitative can be descriptive, correlation, or experimental. Under qualitative, by definition, this is now used to understand concepts, opinions, and experiences, especially experiences. This can be used to gather in-depth insights into a problem to generate new ideas for research. Okay? Qualitative cannot be measured or quantified. It uses non-numeric data based from the table that we discussed earlier on. So data gathering includes interview, observation, video recording, or focus group discussion. And then the design can be classified as phenomenological, ethnographic, historical, grounded theory, and case study. And then the third one, which is the combination of the first two, quantitative quali. So they usually call this quanti-quali or mixed method or hybrid method. But usually they use the term mixed method. So this uses various combinations of data gathering techniques under quantitative or qualitative. Okay, next is under quantitative. Uh, so, under quantitative, descriptive research. So, we will be discussing the different types of designs under each type of research writing. So, we've already differentiated quantitative from qualitative, and then under quantitative, you have the different research designs, and under qualitative, you have another set of research designs. So, we're going to go through all of these designs. The first one is descriptive research. So this is a type of research that describes a population, a situation, or a phenomenon that is being studied. A phenomenon, but under quantitative. Why? Because descriptive, based from the root word to describe, can be used in both quantitative and qualitative research. That's why the word phenomenon appeared in this particular definition. It can be used in both quantitative and qualitative. How can you use narrative description if you have a numeric value? This will enter when you start interpreting tables. From numeric tables, you describe it by writing narratives on the values that are reflected on that particular table. And then you place it under the table, and this is what we call the interpretation of that particular table. So, that is being studied. It focuses on answering the how, what, when, and where questions of a research problem rather than the why. So the why is more on the qualitative research. And then examples of research under descriptive research is perception, knowledge, behaviors, the sentiments, challenges, and opportunities. So by dwelling on these examples like perception, knowledge, behavior, sentiments, challenges, and opportunities, you already have an idea on how to start your research title. Okay. The next, under quantitative, the next design would be correlational research. This is a type of non-experimental research method in which a researcher measures two variables, or two variables, understands and assesses the statistical relationship of these two variables with no influence from any extraneous variables. So example of this under correlation is the relationship between teachers' efficiency, uh, effectivity rather, instead of efficiency. Teachers' effectivity and the webinars or trainings attended. So does this correlate wherein you can say that a teacher is effective if the teacher attended a lot of seminars or trainings? Would the effectivity rise as the trainings and seminars attended compiles and uh, 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 were finished by the teacher on these particular trainings? Or does it go on the opposite side, wherein even if the teacher has not attended any webinars or trainings, the teacher can still be considered effective, or vice versa? The teacher may attend a lot of webinars or trainings, but it does not necessarily mean that the teacher is effective. So that is what we call correlational research. Okay, another is quasi-experimental research. This involves the manipulation of an independent variable without random assignments. Without random assignments. This is the keyword when you conduct quasi-experimental research. What is without random assignment? Respondents are classified and assigned, okay, or participants to conditions or orders of the conditions. So when you group your participants or your respondents, and then you are the ones who assign them to this particular group, this will fall under quasi-experimental research. Another type of experimental research, which is in the definition or the next part of that definition, the opposite is known as the true experimental research. The difference is that in the assigning of the respondents, under true experimental research, where the researcher randomly assigns participants. So they are not directly assigned, they are randomly assigned participants. Okay? So testing of a new teaching strategy would fall under quasi-experimental. Okay, the next is under qualitative, you already have phenomenological study. So under phenomenological study, uh, again from the root word phenomenon, this particular research writing design focuses on experiences or experiences that are observable but cannot be explained. So you make meaning of things that you see or things that you experience. So by definition, phenomenological study explores what people experience and focuses on their experience of a phenomenon. The general purpose of phenomenological study is to understand and describe a specific phenomenon in depth and reach at the essence of the participants' lived experience of the phenomenon. So you focus on a particular individual and try to explain what that individual experienced. Example, lived experiences of Filipino migrant nurses during the pandemic. Moving on to the next qualitative design is ethnography. So under this design, ethnography is the study of people in their own environment. So through the use of methods such as participants observation, face-to-face interview, classic ethnographic research involves detailed description of the whole of a culture outside of the country of origin of the researcher. So usually you try to observe the cultures and traditions of a specific group of people or ethnicity, and you try to make sense, you present and make sense of these observations that you made regarding their culture and tradition. So example is family literacy and culture identity, an ethnographic study of Filipino family in Canada. So this does not necessarily mean that you are going to literally go to ethnicity or a local tribe in your country or community. That is also valid, but that it is not limited to that particular study. So there are already studies that focused on the traditions of culture and cultures of these ethnic groups. But again, I repeat, it does not necessarily contain or is contained on those particular groups. You can go outside of those groups, like the example that is given here in our PowerPoint presentation. Okay, the next one under qualitative is historical research. So the purpose of historical research is to gain a clear understanding of the impact of the past on the present and hopefully in the future events related to the life process that is being investigated. It involves detailed analysis of what has been written or done by this particular person or the focus of the historical writing, and is used to describe, explain, or interpret these events. So example of this historical research is an historical study of the changing ecosystem and its impact to the Philippine food supply. So this does not necessarily again mean that it is limited on the specific life of a person or a hero or a national hero or a character from the history of a particular country, which is also valid. But again, it is not limited to literally these characters who were who has main roles in the development of the history of a particular country. Okay, the next one is grounded theory. So we are going to limit our discussion and end with the discussions under these particular designs. once we've finished discussing the last part of the design under qualitative, we will continue the second part of this discussion in another video. But for now, what is grounded theory? This involves the collection and analysis of data. The theory is grounded in actual data, which means the analysis and development of theories. You are going to analyze and develop theories, analyze a theory, and then the output would be to develop a new theory based on the analysis of these theories. Development of theories happens after you have collected data. This was introduced by Glaser and Strauss in 1967 to legitimize qualitative research. Example of grounded theory: how nursing home residents develops relationship with peers and staff. A grounded theory study. So from the data gathered on this particular issue, they would be able to form a new theory. Okay. Okay, I think this is the last under qualitative. This is case study. The general purpose or objective of case study is to describe an individual situation, a case. Person, this case can be a person, a business organization, or institution in detail to identify the key issues of the case. Analyze the case using relevant theoretical concepts from your unit. So, a case study can also be centered on the life of a particular individual or a person until its development based on a particular theory. Okay, example of this case study, a case study of the decentralization of educational services in the Philippines. So this will focus on the system of education, specifically in the Philippines. So again, this is not limited to the life of a person or individual, because under the example, it can be a person, business organization, or institution. In the case of our example, it's the educational system of the Philippines. Okay, so this would be the start of our next video, how to start the actual research after establishing and gathering all of these informations and be able to identify and differentiate quantitative, qualitative, and the different designs under quantitative and the different designs under qualitative. How do you actually start your research paper? So join me in our next video for us to be able to continue discussing how to actually write your research paper. So again, thank you very much. This is Dr. Edward Padama, and I would again like to invite you to click subscribe to our YouTube channel and try to visit my TikTok account at @DocEdPadama. Again, thank you very much for your support. Stay safe and God bless. See you on the next video. Bye.